States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to tonight's planning board meeting. Please be aware of the fire exits which are to the left of the room. In the event of emergency, please move in a calm and orderly fashion down the stairs and do not use the elevator. The meetings are recorded by the secretary for the purpose of a record and minutes, so if you address the board, please identify yourself each time you come to the podium and speak into the microphone. The board will follow the items in the order they appear on the agenda, which I believe there's only one tonight. Extra copies of the agenda are near the door. After the case has been called, the applicant and/or representative shall come to the podium, identify him or herself, give his or her address, and then present their case. Planning board members will then have an opportunity to question the applicant. This case is a public hearing. It will be open for public input, at which time anyone wishing to speak to the board regarding the application will come to the podium, identify themselves along with their address, and direct any questions to the board. Once all public input has been completed, the applicant or site representative will be given an opportunity to respond to any of the public input. Once all the public input has been completed and all questions have been satisfied, the case will be closed for public input, and the board will then move on to a decision. No further input is allowed after that point. Please call the first case. And the only case.
PB 1905-1, upon the matter of request by Costage Engineering, acting as agent for Guggenheim Development Services LLC for preliminary and final site plan approval to demolish an existing building and construct a new plus or minus 3,134 square feet Jiffy Lube building with associated site improvements on premises 1268 East Ridge Road and a portion of tax ID number 091.08-2-51.1 in a C business district.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Marth. I am Director of Development and Construction for Guggenheim Development Services. I'm here tonight with Garth Winterkorn from Costage Engineering to discuss the project just described on East Ridge Road. My understanding from Garth was last week there was a workshop meeting regarding this project. There were several comments that came out of that meeting that Garth relayed to me immediately after the meeting the following day, so I thought it was appropriate for me to come in tonight in person here to talk to the board and see if we can work through most of these comments this evening and come to some agreement on the site plan as it sits today. What you have here tonight before you is a revised site plan with coloring off to my right here. I think we took several of the comments, first of all, and sort of boiled them down, I think, into the largest issues that we had out of that workshop. So I think the biggest issues that we had, and I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong on this, was the circulation on the site as it relates to the exit back onto East Ridge Road. So Garth and I took a stab at adjusting the layout on this site so that the vehicles exiting the Jiffy Lube bays are further away from the East Ridge Road exit. So if you look at the colored renderings that we're showing now, I believe the plan that was submitted to the workshop showed the cars exiting much closer. And I don't know if there's the remote mic. Is it right here? Sorry.
No, you're good. Power on. Good. Perfect.
Good? Yes? All right. So the plan that we had come in with
I'm
originally.
going to ask you to stop for a minute. Can you just identify the plan that we should be looking at in front of us? By a number, I don't care what you do it by, but just something so we're all on the same page.
Oh, you mean the microphone?
Sorry. CA110.
Is it labeled 4 of 11?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Apologies if you. So I don't know if Garth submitted you the colored overlay version. We thought it was a little more.
We're good. I
okay.
just wanted to make sure.
Sure. So for presentation purposes, this is the colored version, but it's the same plan. And I think the discussion was centered on vehicles exiting through the front of the Jiffy Lube bays and being able to come out to a right and then make a left turn, an immediate left turn to be square on to East Ridge Road. So we've taken the layout and actually shifted the building back north on the site. And Garth has shown vehicle circulation on that. Now I want to point out the vehicle that's shown on there is a 20-foot vehicle, which equates to a full-size pickup truck with a crew cab. So any vehicle smaller than that is going to be a smaller turning radius and a smaller set than that. So as we show here, we can actually fit, again, 2 large trucks nearly fit square, and smaller vehicles you could certainly fit 2 square onto East Ridge Road, leading to exit the property. So that also incidentally served, I think there was a comment about snow storage in the front landscape area. By pushing the building back, this landscape area is now deeper in the front and allows us for more space to push snow at that front area without creating a conflict with whatever snow removal services may be happening out at the right of way, or certainly minimizing it with that larger landscape area. So that was the first change. The second change, we relocated the dumpster corral, because I think we all agree on the first plan we had it sort of in the northeast corner, back behind the building, perpendicular. It was not really a great place for that, nor was a truck readily going to be able to get in and out and service that dumpster. So we essentially moved it to the northwest corner of the site, so a garbage truck now can drive down the lane on the western side of the building and make nearly a straight shot into that dumpster and then exit out onto Portland. So it's a much better spot for trash services. So I think from a circulation standpoint, those were the 2 issues that I saw as major issues that the planning board wanted addressed. Certainly vehicles being able to egress the site safely is important. We recognize that. We shifted the building to accommodate those 2 vehicles being able to sit perpendicular to East Ridge Road. I should note that the average Jiffy Lube business averages about 30 cars a day. So we're not talking about a substantial amount of vehicles. We're open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the evening, most weekdays, and then weekend hours are reduced, typically 8 to 6 on Saturdays and something like 9 to 4 on Sundays. So that 30 cars is about the average per day. So I think, if you take the number of hours in a day, 30, that's not a ton of cars that we're talking about generating a lot of traffic with conflicts on the site. So these were the things that we did that we thought were major improvements based on the workshop comments. There were several other comments that came out of the meeting that we felt were minor. I'll just run through them quickly, just to let you know that we're generally okay with pretty much everything. There were some comments about stamped concrete pedestrian walkways. We're fine with that. The snow removal, as discussed, I think we've made it better by pulling the building back and creating a larger landscape area. The lighting is all internal illumination on the building. Any outside wall lighting is direct down lighting. There's no lights that shine out into space that would impact adjacent properties. We're certainly, I think there was a comment about some shielding on maybe one of the area lights. We're obviously amenable to doing that. And I think that kind of covered at least the larger points that were brought up in the workshop. I'm certainly, if I missed something, I'm sure we can go over it, but that was and I think there were some more engineering-centric comments that I think Garth will be working through anyway. And he can certainly answer to those if we need him to. But I'm happy to entertain further questions.
Anyone want to start with questions?
Just a quick one about the dumpster enclosure. I see that that's made out of masonry. Is the concrete block, is that split face or what is that?
I believe we do typically prototype a split face. If that's something you would like, we certainly can do it.
And that's what most people have been doing, yeah. And then I got your comment about the pedestrian access, so it sounds good to me.
And I apologize, you represent, who do you?
I'm from Guggenheim Development Services. And just briefly, so we're acting on Jiffy Lube's behalf. Jiffy Lube wants to open between 10 and 20 stores in the greater Rochester, Buffalo area. We're acting as their developer for those sites. We have several sites in the area under different phases of entitlement currently.
So you've done numerous Jiffy Lubes in this area and other areas?
So
or-
this area is fairly new to, I shouldn't say this. There were Jiffy Lubes here many years ago under different ownerships, and, you know, as many companies get bought up and split and shared, people want to enter back into markets. This market under Jiffy Lube today, as currently owned by Shell Oil, we're coming back into the market. So it's relatively new again.
Is this the only one you've done in this area then? This will be the first one?
So we're currently working on this one. We have one underway in Hamburg, Henrietta, and we're also working on one in Buffalo.
So the reason I'm asking is so this is obviously a tight site.
Yes.
What's your feelings about the success of the business overall? How do you feel about the success of the business based on
Of
tightness of the
this?
site? Right. Obviously, if you had a different site that had all this space, you would do something different, so.
Correct. I mean, I'm not going to lie and say, I mean, I would love a 200 foot by 200 foot square. I think everyone would like that. But I think, you know, this is a good site for Jiffy Lube. I think they're very excited about it. I spoke actually with the franchisor earlier this evening. His name is Steve Isom. He'll be running all of these stores in the region. I think they feel good about what this store can be.
And
they,
the person that
Oh,
takes
sorry.
this franchise, what kind of a commitment do they have to make? Is it a number of years, or, I'm just trying to understand when you say it'll be successful.
So admittedly, I don't get into all the leasing details with Jiffy Lube, and what I can tell you is that the franchisor for this site, he's going to be running in several regions of the eastern United States. So he's certainly committed to this, and like I said, we're pretty proactive in a lot of regions, not just New York. I can't speak to all the details of the Jiffy Lube lease and
I only ask because other people that have had franchises say X number of years, they felt good because, you know, they have to make a certain amount of commitment,
right.
but you don't know those.
I really can't speak to the ins and outs. That I apologize. I'm not trying to be evasive. I just
No,
don't know
it's
the
okay,
answer.
I just was curious. I'm just trying to get a sense for how you feel about the tightness and success,
I mean-
overall success.
So this site is, again, it's a deep site and it's a little narrower than we would like, but certainly this site will function. I mean, so this has to go to Jiffy Lube, the franchisor, and to Jiffy Lube corporate for their approval. So they've already approved it. They feel as though this is a good site for them to work. And trust me, Garth, we're working on one in Buffalo for them, and they're beating us up mercilessly on layout right now. So
And they approved the previous version too, I take it.
the
You're saying Jiffy Lube approved the first one you brought to us before you moved it.
right. So we consider this substantially the same. I don't go back to Jiffy Lube every time we shift the building. Otherwise, I would never get a project approved. But this is substantially the same.
How much did you shift the building?
Garth, do you know how far exactly?
I don't have that number exactly, but I would say approximately 15 feet. Is it
If I said it was 6 feet, would that,
6 feet?
because I'm looking at the original plan which says, just that corner measurement showing me 45.4, and this one's showing me 51.8. Is that correct?
Yeah, the building shifted that much. The
Gonna
driveway,
need that,
I was speaking to the driveway shift and how far that went.
Okay.
The exit.
My question was about the building though.
Building, yes, you're,
6 feet?
so we would have, so the night I spent with the zoning board getting in variance was, we would still need it even with a current plan. They granted us a variance for the 45.1 where 60 is required, so now we're somewhere in between that, so.
So can I go back to something too? So in the previous drawings, and I apologize, I wasn't at the workshop. You didn't have a monument sign, but now you do.
Correct.
So even though, how will that impact, we were concerned about traffic flow, so how high is that? What's the details
So the
of it?
monument sign is, so we typically at this stage of approval, we show the monument sign as a sort of a placeholder to say we'd like to have a monument sign here. Obviously, it needs to comply with whatever your local ordinance is for signage. Typically, the monument signs are just that. They're usually, slightly taller than someone like me. They're not a big 25-foot road sign or anything like that.
What are you, about 8 foot? No, that's 6 foot,
I wish I wouldn't be here. If I was 8 feet, I wouldn't be doing this.
6 feet.
Yeah, I'm just over 6.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to clarify something for the board members, because Alan just pointed something out to me. The drawing that we received a few days ago via email from town staff is different from the drawing that we received tonight. So I've been looking at my 11 by 17 copy that I printed of what you guys, the town staff, sent us a week ago or whatever. That is modified by,
Or there was another one.
there was an interim one that was emailed.
So you should be looking at the hard copy that was handed out.
Right, I'm just making sure, because I
And
did
thank you
not
for clarifying,
realize
because
that,
the
so-
building, the hard copy I'm looking at in a large format plan, the distance to the building was, noted as, to the front corner was 64.9 feet. At the one I'm looking at is,
Yeah, Alan was looking at the eastern corner.
oh, you're looking at the
Yeah,
other
because
corner.
East Ridge Road,
Apologies.
sort of.
Yeah, but I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure everybody understood, because I was looking at
Oh, wrong,
a
okay.
slightly older plan.
Yeah,
That
so
doesn't
we
actually
should all be
include the
looking at the one
monument.
that's dated, well, it's, the one that's CA, is it, you're looking at CA 110?
Yeah, they all say that.
Do they have the revision date?
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have a revision date, which,
The ones that were handed out tonight, that has the one revision on it.
Says it says dated 5/20. Revision 1 revised per planning board workshop meeting comments.
apologies, the revision's at the bottom. Okay.
CA 110 site and pavement work.
Yeah, I definitely don't want us to all be on the on the wrong
That's why I
side.
asked.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I was just asking about the sign. So the sign is not something you're seeking approval on tonight?
So, the placement of a sign, I guess, on the plan, if you don't agree with placement, then that's part of it, but we would like to have a monument sign shown on the approved plan. If it's not something you allow or agree to, then
Was
I
this
guess that
discussed at
sign
the
goes away.
workshop?
No.
It was not
No, it was,
discussed at the
no, it was added.
Okay. Because normally we request a lot more information.
Okay, so I guess my question for the board is, I know signage relative to the building, site signage, all of those sorts of things, we typically that's, and again, I'm not saying that that's the right or wrong way, it gets filed, we have it filed as a separate permit application for signage down the road. I guess what I would say is whatever the code is, we will be compliant, obviously it's part of the review. I don't know if can that be separated from a site plan approval, the signage, because
We would make it condition that you'd have to come back to the board for approval with the details.
And Bernie, just so you know, at workshop, we did ask for signage details, sizes, brightness, colors, renderings, and obviously they weren't presented this evening, so.
That
And we
was
were
one of
actually
the-
told that the only signage that was going to be done was on the building, and that could have
building,
just
yeah.
been
Yep.
a miscommunication on their part.
Well, the previous
Gotta get
layout
you-
with the driveway.
Microphone,
need
sorry.
mic.
Yeah, I saw that. We all saw
right.
that.
Yeah.
The previous layout with the driveway close to the road and the narrower green space offset from the sidewalk along Ridge Road did not allow us to put the monument sign at the required 15-foot setback, which is why we didn't show it originally as part of the application. Now with the driveway being shifted north, we looked at it and these, Jiffy Lube or Guggenheim would, like John said, we could come back with the details of it, but just wanted us to show it as a bookmark again, because now we have the setback.
Right, I
We
think,
can meet the code on that.
yeah, I think while you may meet the code for setback,
Right.
what we typically do is we look at the entire signage package, and it may then, depending on the size and the lighting and so on of the monument sign, it may impact what we would consider allowing on other portions of the building. So we need to see the whole package as a whole and
did.
review it.
Submit, the signage, this building elevation, with the sign areas all total per code,
Do you know what that total is?
minus these small ones, the small ones being these exit signs here,
The exit-only signs?
correct.
Yep.
And these enter signs here was 188 square feet, where code allows 350. So we're right in the ballpark of 200 square feet total, as shown here.
I'm looking for actual sizes on those signs, like,
Yeah, I did
That
email
that was forwarded,
dimensions.
I believe, to the board by Michelle.
but we don't have a hard copy.
Oh, okay, I'll go run
No,
them
it's
right
not a
now.
big deal, that's
No,
why I was.
I'll go run them right now. Apologies, when, we indicated to the applicant that anything that was submitted electronically needed to be provided in hard copy, there might have been a misunderstanding.
But even if we had the square footage of the total amount of signs, the parcel immediately adjacent, we approved their site plan and then had them come back for additional signage so as two separate applications.
All I'm saying, obviously we don't have it tonight, but
No,
when
no,
you do
I-
come back for the whole package,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what we're gonna
yeah,
need.
yeah, yeah.
No, and we thoroughly understand that you will do a full review of signage and we will keep compliant.
I'm sorry, Jackie, did you? Mr. Huber, go ahead.
With the shifts in the building, could we assume though that the landscape plan is not, as you say, substantively different, other than minor changes that you need to make, obviously, for the shift of the building, but by and large, the landscape plan that you submitted in the original package would be pretty much the same?
Substantially the same, yes.
Do you have any questions?
Can somebody just talk to me about the storage of the snow on the slopes in the back of the north end of the property? Because those are pretty steep slopes.
Yeah, so I think we all aware that this whole area here drops off on all three sides. The snow storage and I'm sure someone can correct me if I'm wrong, based on what's there today, historically, that's where the snow has been. When I was out there the first time, there was snow in those areas. I think we're actually improving it because we're actually recurbing in this area and, being able to control some of the melt in the parking area, whereas now it's not curbed, it's kind of a free-for-all out there.
Yeah.
But the reality is, yes, there will be, I'm not gonna stand here and say there's not gonna be snow pushed at those slopes. Obviously, I actually had Garth, you may remember, specifically pull the curbing in more because I was concerned about being able to push snow over that curb and not have it rolling onto other people's property. So right now, we're probably, I don't know what these depths are, but probably 15 feet at least on around those areas. Again, the existing grading there today is such that it's not substantially going to change. I think we offer improvement by curbing in the lot and do provide some treatment of some of the the melt in the parking lot. But
And what is erosion prevention going to be then back there?
Can I actually, before we,
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
add another question on the snow while we're talking about it. So there's 12 parking spaces in the rear parking lot. How many on a day-to-day basis, how many cars do you think are really, is it 12 or is it something?
no, so the maximum amount of employees is 8 on a busy shift. And then as we know, customers don't use those spaces. The customers are pulling into
Pulling
the
in
bay
and
and then they get out of their car and wait in the customer area. So, we're actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
My thought, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth, my thought is on the snow storage piece, since there's 12, if you were to theoretically push all the snow or most of the snow north, say you plowed in the morning before any
Not
employees
over.
were there, And even if a little bit of it kind of went over the edge, you could
Use that as storage.
theoretically lose that entire north 18 feet or 9 feet.
Last four
excuse-
spaces,
Yeah, or
essentially.
at least two of them. Maybe
Right.
you leave a couple extras for shift changes or something. But that sounds like that wouldn't necessarily burden the
No,
business.
and we're talking 8 at the during busy shifts, you may only have 4 or 5 guys on most days.
So that might help the snow storage issue. I'm
Okay.
sorry, go ahead with your erosion question.
No, I just want to make sure if we're going to store snow back there and the plan calls for it at this moment, then I think we need to do something to mitigate. I know that there's some riprap back there on the north part of the slope. I don't recall what's on the east and west part of the slopes.
I don't recall off the top of my head either.
And I think the town engineer,
Yes,
Has
one of
that in their
LaBella's
letter.
comments was to, so when you put the topsoil and seed down, was to use an erosion control fabric that's stapled or pinned into the ground. And that keeps everything stable until, the seed and everything is taken, and then the slopes are stable due to the seed.
okay.
But yeah, that will be incorporated as part of the responses to LaBella.
So with the change of the snow storage in the front, does that alter your I heard you tell Mr. Huber that it doesn't alter your landscape plans at all, the type of plants, but the fact that you're now gonna be pushing snow.
Right, so most of this here is low-style shrubs and bushes in the front. I mean, there's going to be snow pushed on top of those for the winter, and, we'll have to make sure we're monitoring those, replacing them and maintaining them, because,
I saw that in your landscape notes, that you would do that.
yeah, that's the reality, I'm sure. I'm from Rhode Island, we don't get snow quite as bad as Rochester, but I'm sure these plants are used to sitting under snow for a very long time up here. But we'll have to make sure there's an O&M plan in place for that.
Yeah, it's not as much the snow as it is the salt that
It's
can
Oh, yeah, the
destroy
road-
them.
the
So,
sa-
is there any reason, I'm looking at your colored rendering there,
Mm-hmm.
is there any reason why the landscaping couldn't be pushed more parallel to the sidewalk?
Towards East Ridge.
Yeah, which if it's low, it wouldn't create a sight issue,
Mm-hmm.
and then it would give you some lawn
Right, to actually push.
right up over the curb where you could push and maybe not be pushing onto the landscaping, because I think the salt is gonna,
I'm just gonna remind the board, though, that DPW does plow East Ridge Road with the sidewalk plow, so that snow will be pushed regardless from both directions, both from the site and from the sidewalk. Just as a full disclosure.
And I just want to make a note that the landscape that you're showing there, which is not real clear from my vantage point here, is different than the one that was on the original plan.
Same number, same species.
Excuse me, Garth, I just need you to come to the podium if you're gonna speak or respond to the board. Thank you so much.
Why don't you just keep the remote and I'll do this?
The types and numbers of all the different plantings are the same. We just have more room.
Is it
Again.
the total number or the total number per site or the total number in that bed?
The total number on the original landscape plan that was submitted as part of the application, those numbers have not changed.
So the number in this bed may be different.
He's asking.
No,
what-
they're all the same. The locations and the numbers are the same.
I think your question's right.
Okay.
And
So-
I think the other answer is we'll plant what you need us to plant. If there's something that's not to your liking there, or we've missed, or we're short, we can work with that, certainly.
I for one still have concerns about the cross-traffic up front. I still think that you have folks that are gonna be driving across incoming traffic as they're seeking an exit. And I somehow wanna be reassured that for the safety of the citizens, that we're not gonna have a problem there.
Yeah, that's, just to kind of jump on your comment, that's my biggest overall concern of this entire thing. And while I do think it is marginally better in what is proposed here, pushing this stuff back, my big concern is that people, as they're coming out of Jiffy Lube, they're gonna come out south, and then they're gonna kind of turn west, facing west at that stop sign. And then the problem is they're parallel with the traffic that could be turning in from Ridge Road. They're driving parallel to potential incoming traffic. So I see that people are gonna be coming east to west on Ridge, and they're gonna pull in the Ridge curb, and they're gonna be heading over to Aspen Dental or Well Now. and they're not gonna have a whole lot of thought or care about what's coming from over here, and they're gonna come in quick and go this way, and the people coming out of Jiffy Lube are gonna be trying to turn out to get to the stop sign or the stop bar at Ridge, and I see a major cross-traffic impact point there.
Can I just respond for your consideration? So I would actually agree with you if this curb was more like a 10 or 20-foot radius curb coming in, I would agree with you. But based on the fact that we're ramping, this is a very sharp cornered ramped turn here for somebody to make. I frankly don't think you can turn into this very quickly because
Well,
of that
Yeah,
geometry.
I understand what you're saying, and drawing that, you know, in the perfect theoretical world of how people follow the proper lines and turn, that's correct. But in reality, they're just gonna drive diagonal, and they're gonna drive right across that spot where the car should be theoretically sitting to pull out. So they'll just come in at a very skewed angle and come in, rather than come in, turn 90 and turn 90. So I still think they're gonna be moving at a relatively moderate clip coming in there, and I see a cross-traffic point that's,
Not to stop you short, but to add to it, I've racked my brain over this. Someone's pulling out of Aspen Dental and makes a right to that stop sign and is waiting for traffic to clear. Meanwhile, somebody's coming out of Jiffy Lube and hanging a left to leave as well. When's the last time you stayed stopped at that stop sign and didn't just queue up behind the person, but you're kind of not really in the way?
Yep.
And then someone comes in off of Eastridge Road to go to Aspen Dental.
And they're stuck.
And they're stuck. And then a second person, and then a third person.
Yep.
And then they're lined up in Eastridge Road. That's my concern. It's not so much that guy coming in and whipping in the corner, and right? It's these people ending up boxed in. That's and that's, I think, what
I agree
like
with you.
Shafron was getting at here when he says, have you explored flipping the building on a longitudinal axis?
I think you're right with that comment that you just said.
I understand
Is it-
that Jiffy Lube is not it's 30 cars a day, not a huge trip generator. Absolutely. If it was what it was originally proposed as,
different story.
you're right, different story. But I think Well Now and Aspen Dental are big enough trip generators.
And it only takes maybe 2 or 3 cars to cause this
Yeah.
problem.
And that's
not
if this was
dozens.
another
Yeah, it's 2.
30 feet.
Only takes 2, yeah.
Well, we already have that problem on Portland Avenue, at the Dunkin' Donut. I mean, we already have a queuing problem that hits out on some,
Is it
Portland.
not possible to only leave the cross access in the rear of the building and close the cross access in the front?
Are you talking about the cross access that Aspen Dental has?
Yeah, between the two
I have no
lots.
control over what Aspen Dental got approved and
Oh,
built.
because I understand.
Yeah, no, we can't.
And then in the back, you can only get out to Portland Avenue.
Well, yeah, because right now this is a one.
Because right now it's a one-way, so otherwise either you go out to Portland Avenue or you're getting an oil change.
So. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I was gonna say, one of the things that was brought up by our engineer, did you consider flipping the building?
Yes, we considered several alternatives. So the first I'd like to say is, so whether you have a vehicle, I don't want to get in trouble. If you have a vehicle turning right here and one coming out here, so regardless of where they're coming from, if I have 2 vehicles sitting here, right? A vehicle turning in here still has the ability to use this lane to access Aspen Dental. As it's currently configured.
Yeah, as long as Mr.
Person
Evelyn
stays
said,
there.
as long as the person pulling out of Jiffy Lube, if there's already somebody, say from Aspen Dental, that's come to the first stop bar on their curb cut or their property, and then coming and turning, and they're stuck because they're waiting for traffic at the stop bar out at Ridge, as long as the person from Jiffy Lube waits their turn at the stop bar on the Jiffy
Correct.
Lube site, and doesn't come in and kind of wait angled, which, as Mr. Evelyn pointed out, most people will do. They'll pull forward and wait, and once they pull forward, now they're diagonal and they're blocking that incoming lane, so they can't get up the one way to the rear anymore.
I understand your point. I guess all I can say is we can queue 2 cars here and still have someone, whether they're coming from here or 2 from here, another vehicle can still. Now, if a third person wants to come and hang across the driveway,
That's what he's saying.
No, I understand. yeah, I can't stand here and say we can stop that third person from doing exactly what you're saying, no. But that, whether I had 2-car queue or a 5-car queue, you still are not gonna prevent a person from deciding they wanna be the next guy in line and blocking the driveway.
But we're creating that environment by.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even 2 cars, or 3 cars, it's really just 2 cars.
Correct. Correct.
Right? I
The
mean,
queue is
it's
2.
1 car from Aspen and 1 from Jiffy, and then you've blocked the drive to get to the rear.
Correct. So
So-
in light of that, because I think this is where we're gonna agree to disagree, we did go back and we did look at other alternatives. We looked at reversing the flow of the site, shifting the site. I think someone at the workshop mentioned shifting the site to the west and reversing the flow of the site so that, so basically keeping this existing drive aisle, but reversing its flow this way. That was one alternative we looked at. Now, if we do that, if we run into a queue here, now no one can get into Aspen Dental at all, because if there's 2 cars stacked here, and this is one way, this is my only ingress into the Aspen Dental. So that doesn't work. The second one we looked at, taking the building and shifting it, moving this slip lane over here, and reversing the flow. That presupposes that we somehow are gonna get permission now from Aspen Dental and these people for our cars to circulate through their parking lot and come back out to this exit.
They wouldn't circulate through the
Why
building.
are they circulating?
That's only if you do an entrance from the front and an exit in the rear.
Right.
Right. They
I
would
think
go.
we were saying take the entire function and just mirror it, so you drive around, exit in, or enter in the rear and still exit out the front.
But then your exit is also in line with the curb cut.
Right.
So I guess I'm not following what the,
So if you take
Well,
the
we
whole
have a
building,
plan.
Yeah.
okay,
I can
and you
actually-
absolutely mirror it, just literally flip it. So the office is on the eastern side of the property, on the east side of the building, and the garages are on the western side.
Okay.
Then you take that whole building and you move it over to the other side of the property.
as far west as we can.
Yep, and then you bring that drive lane in and around the east side of the building. Cars enter in the back and exit out the front.
So how is my car going to, so,
So, Mr. Chairman, can I offer up a
Yes.
rudimentary sketch that I just
Ooh.
overlaid that shows what we talked about at workshop? I mean, I'm not by any means saying
I
that
would
this
like him
needs
to
to
answer
be.
Mr. Evelyn's question
that's
first.
fine.
though.
Yeah, I think
I think this might help,
Yeah.
because this is, I think, what was discussed at workshop. And it's rudimentary, it's just it's to depict, I think, what we discussed at workshop, because I didn't see from the alternatives here that that was quite what I think we were intending for discussion.
so from my perspective, I don't think this works because now I have cars exiting my bays directly into oncoming traffic for the site. So now my bays, whereas here they're coming out and, trying to enter the site's traffic pattern, here we're showing at least, and I know it's a sketch, 2 bays possibly, driving head-on into people. We just talked about people coming into the site quickly.
Right, the advantage, I think what we were thinking when we offered this up as an option was that they can at least now see the oncoming traffic. Because now they're perpendicular to the traffic rather than parallel to it.
But they're driving at each other head-on, and I don't think I could,
Right, but you can see the car and stop because you can see them coming, where if you're running parallel to them, you don't see them and you're driving not head-on, and then you're gonna hit each other, more likely. Was the thought process. And again, we're not the engineer up here, you guys are, it's just, I think we're trying to explain what our thoughts were at workshop.
yeah, I mean, I guess, again, for me, from our perspective, I have never seen a site where an ingress curb cut meets a vehicle coming this. Yes, they're facing each other, but they're driving in opposite directions towards each other. I don't think I'm personally comfortable going back to Jiffy Lube and saying we should do this. That's just my opinion.
Did you try anything lateral or putting the building on its side? Did you try?
90
Pursuant to the
90 degrees.
comments.
What's that?
Talking about the 90 degrees.
Yeah, I think the problem with the 90 degrees is it doesn't give us enough depth because of, we talked about how narrow the site is. Trying to get a vehicle around with some level of queuing in the back, exit out, and still this site is, I don't know what the exact width of the site is, but, it's extremely narrow.
64.71 feet.
60 port, yeah. No, I can't.
That can't be right,
No,
Mike.
that's
I
not
agree
right.
that that's the
That's-
dimension
that's
that's
definitely-
listed, but
That's
that's not
something
right.
I want to say, because our building is 92, look, you can do the math, 92, so it's
This is
112, about 120 feet maybe.
Yeah,
That
the
is,
the back is 96 on its own.
it's about 120 feet wide, and I can tell you, I've done sites as narrow as 140, and it's very tight, so 120 is probably quite problematic.
Is it Jiffy Lube's model that you have to have a certain number of bays? If you
So
only have
this is-
30 cars, you have to have that many bays?
Yeah, so if their business model is to have the and the business, so the 4 bays essentially is, the first 2 bays act as your primary, your oil change customers, right? And then the second 2 bays are more the longer term service. I need I'm not a mechanic, but whatever longer term thing might take a whole day, they have those other 2 bays. And they typically work that into the market as far as what they need for turnover in vehicles and all that to make the site pencil. Out of the 30 or so of these I've worked on, I've only done one, what they call a 1x4. They typically don't do anything else.
I do have another question then, Mr. Chair. Are there any plans to have vehicles stored overnight?
No.
All right, and then describe to me what's happening with the customer when they arrive on the site and how they're exiting the car and where they're going.
So the vehicle would enter whichever side we arrive at is the entry
Right.
side of the building. They pull in, the mechanic or whoever greets them, they get out of their vehicle, and this larger office area is a customer waiting area, so to speak.
Okay.
So they go and wait in the waiting area where the oil's being changed or whatever they need to have done. It's all done, and then they get back in their car and they drive away.
Where's their car gonna be when they get back into it?
That feels like I don't know. I don't know whether they get in it actually in the bay or if the mechanic pulls it out and steps. And
But
I'm
I
not
know
sure
that they're, from your description, they're going to be exiting before they enter the garage.
That's my understanding. Yes, I would assume that it works in reverse as well. They're going to get in the car in the garage and drive it out.
So they're not gonna, let me just ask one more time, just so I'm clear, sorry. They won't drive through the door, right? Or will they? When they,
My understanding is they pull into the bay.
Okay.
They get out of their vehicle, and they go wait.
that was my question, thank you.
So one of the things the engineer brought up was, could the stacking of the vehicles into the service bays be in front of the building so that we would eliminate this traffic issue? Did you address that? I apologize.
Those were a couple of the layouts we looked at, was ingressing from the front. Now, again, I would submit for the board's consideration, and I don't know what your feelings are on these. Jiffy Lube doesn't love to show cars sitting parked in front of their buildings. I don't know how, again, I don't know how the city feels about, showing, would you rather have a facade of a building, or would you rather have cars parked when vehicles drive by? That was one, but we did look at layouts, and I think the layouts, again, I described were problematic. I have a small handout here, we didn't submit it tonight, that can show you some of the iterations we went through. But we did look at 2 iterations with the access from the front.
Yeah, so what was the issue with the access from the front? Because it would take care of this traffic issues. I'm just trying to ensure.
Do you have
All the
this sheet,
issues.
Bernie, that was sent via email?
Or no? It's right there.
So this has their 2 alternate options, and the one on the left is what you're asking about?
Who submitted this? I'm sorry.
The applicant did
The applicant.
sometime midweek,
Which one do they have?
last week.
But they're not proposing that
Oh,
to
what are
us.
they looking at? They don't have.
They're
those.
not proposing that. That was 2 sketches that were given to us, but I don't believe that that's part of an application for this evening.
So this document titled CE 100 is not to be considered?
That was shown to, I believe, submitted to demonstrate what the applicant considered before advancing their final plan.
We have one here. Garth's trying to, because you have 2 and I have one with 3. So I'm just trying
We were
to.
like, you gotta stop somewhere.
Right. So is it okay if I approach with this?
I can go make copies of
Yeah,
this,
I
if
have,
that's.
I have enough for everyone, I
You
think.
do? Okay.
Is that okay? I know it's,
No,
yeah, I
no.
think it's the same two plus one more that we looked at.
Yeah, if you have enough, Chairman, if the board, if they have enough to hand out to the board, do you want to see the three alternatives that
Yes,
they?
please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Oh.
Yes.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but two of those three are ones that you've already seen. The one on the far right being what we're proposing. This is what we talked about earlier, two vehicles. Again, bear in mind, these are the largest vehicles we're typically going to encounter at a Jiffy Lube. Two vehicles, and then still able to access the roadway to get to the back, cross access with the Aspen Dental and out to Portland if necessary. That's the far right. The one in the middle is reversing the flow, showing the slip lane to the east side of the building. This one obviously was what I was talking about, predicates us on having some sort of traffic flow through the adjacent property. And then the one to the left, again, showing vehicles entering from the East Ridge Road side, but reversing the flow of the slip lane that we're showing currently. That becomes problematic because that essentially eliminates the cross access for anyone wanting to get to the back of the Aspen Dental or go out through Portland. And we still have the issue of if we have two cars there now, someone has to make a left at that first curb cut into Aspen, and we could definitely create some queuing issues back on the East Ridge.
So can you go over again the one in the middle, what that concerned?
Well, the concern is that I have to ask permission of the abutting property to let my cars drive over their parking lot.
It's also putting the rear end of the building up against the street.
So, can we go over the disadvantages as you guys see them to the option on the left?
Yeah, so the option on the left, if we suppose that this is the layout, somebody who wants to access Aspen Dental can only do it through the immediate first curb cut right off of East Ridge. Now, if there's a two-car queue there, they're essentially trapped with nowhere to go because that slip lane is a one-lane heading south towards Ridge Road. So now, if that person needs to get to Aspen Dental, they have to wait until the queue clears, and now I would argue that that's a real danger of backing into East Ridge Road.
Agreed. Solves some problems and creates others.
Correct. Whereas the one on the right, I'm not going to stand here with a straight face and say it's the best. Again, I'd love a 200 square lot if I could have it. But at least the one on the far right, we've got enough pavement there with two vehicles that a vehicle can still reasonably negotiate around and get to the back.
So one of the other things that I think we talked with the engineer at the workshop was about the possibility, if I'm looking at the one on the right here, just for talking purposes right now. Oh, you can't because you won't have enough turn. I was going to say, we talked about pushing what I'll call your curb cut or your exit curb cut from your exit lanes onto the kind of Ridge Road intersection, pushing that further towards the building, but the further you push that, the harder it is for that first car to probably get out and make the turn. Am I correct on that? Okay.
So, could I ask and I'm asking sort of as a hypothetical or a, so today, out on the site, the previous business that was there had parking, the building that we would in theory demolish had parking down the west side of it. This curb cut access essentially is there today. The way it was accessed is there today. Are we concerned that we're not, I would submit we're improving the existing condition out there. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it is an improvement over what's there today.
Sure. I mean, we didn't.
But we're looking at an apartment complex, right, or apartment building. It's not used as a business at this point.
But it wasn't, how long ago was that not used as a business?
Probably more than a day ago.
How long is a day in Irondequoit? I'm not sure how long that
Not
is.
sure how long ago the.
Every day flies by here. It's
remained
wonderful.
Business, but it was commercial at one point.
I guess I would submit we are making an improvement to what's out there today.
Would reducing the lawn area on the side of on the west side of the building and creating two 10-foot lanes help at all? Right, you've got 15 feet and then 6 foot of grass. So if you removed the grass and just paved up to the side of the building, that would give you another 6 feet. That would give you enough, a little more, to do two 10-foot drive aisles. Would that impact the viability of any of these other iterations of the plan if the slip line worked in both directions?
So my experience has been typically two-way drives are 24 feet. Number one. Number two, I would be concerned about traffic being very close to the side of my building.
Two-way drives are 24 feet, but
that's
most
typical.
streets are 11 foot wide.
Not 24 for a parking lot, especially if you have parking is typical. Yeah, you might be able to get it on a foot. I don't know that you're gonna get, and I understand the applicant's point about now you're scraping the side of the building essentially without a curb there to,
What
yeah,
are
yeah.
they, Carrie? I'm sorry, what are the drive aisles? Oh, you're not supposed to.
No, I think if you look in our code, especially in the design of a parking lot, unlike most other towns actually specify 24 as the drive aisle width, I think actually our code may have be 25.
This might be a slightly different circumstance because it wouldn't be a drive aisle for a park. It wouldn't have parking.
It's not connecting to
that's also
park.
so somebody can back
Sure.
out and turn.
Yep,
This would just be like a internal street
sure.
in a way.
Yep.
So it might. We'd have to do a deep dive on the code to see if there's any
There
allowance
is
for
there
that,
is some
but-
wiggle room for site plan review purposes. That's the drive aisle width has been modified when it's for one way only. Our code doesn't really speak to that, so the planning board usually takes those kinds of issues under when they're looking at things for site plan purposes. So you'd have the leeway to do that.
Even a two-way, I mean, most roadways, your minimum, I'm guessing East Ridge Road is a good example, it's probably 11 feet is your width. So, I mean, at the absolute minimum, it's 22 is absolute minimum, and that's still taking 7 feet away from our, buffering to the property, parking immediately to the west of us, as well as our building. I think that's, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that little space between me and oncoming and traffic next to the building.
It looks like there's about 25 feet from the property line to the face of the building in the application as submitted tonight on that side. So it would be cozy. Could theoretically,
Keep the cars going
you
slow.
could
And
theoretically
that's-
get a road in
That
there.
presumes if we wanna put our gas meter, our electric meter, any of that kind of stuff on that side of the building.
Yeah, I mean, 25 would theoretically, if you went with 22, you could theoretically get a 2-foot curb or something, but understood, I'm just,
Yep.
It doesn't. I mean, none of the options are really great.
I think one of the options is fantastic.
No matter what we do, we have to do some mitigation on this. It's not a clean flow in and out. I mean, across the street, you would have a 200 feet all around, but here you don't. So I think that, Mr. Chair, that we need to, I don't have any more questions for the applicant. I think we just need to decide.
Well, we gotta have a public hearing too, but
Yeah.
does anybody else on the board have any other questions? I tried to explore different options too, so.
And I hope we did go through a effort here to try to.
No, thank you for sharing this. I
Appreciate that.
Any other questions before we open up the public hearing? Any other comments before we open up the public
I
hearing?
think I've said enough.
Please have a seat. and we'll-
Thank you.
I'm gonna take that mic back. Sure. That's all right.
At this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing. Anybody who would like to address the board regarding this, please come to the podium. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. So, we're at the point, gentlemen, and Jackie, sorry. Any other comments?
I honestly can't say, and this is just personally, and you all can nod yes or shake your head no. This might be the best option, but I've not been presented with something that tells me it's not going to be a problem. We asked the town engineer to comment on it, and he said it might be a problem. could very easily become a problem.
I agree with you, Mr. Yulin. Anybody else?
I agree, there needs to be some mitigation here.
Let me ask, if it's appropriate. Understanding some of the concerns that have been raised tonight, do you want to go back and take another look at this before we go to a vote that may or may not be what you, can I ask that question? To table this?
You certainly may, if you wanted to have the engineer. I don't know that the engineer, the town engineer, likely did not have an opportunity to speak directly to the project engineer. And often, if there's opportunities to communicate among themselves, they can talk about the potential issues with respect to design and potentially come to some understanding of what is a mutually agreeable solution that could be presented back to the board at the next meeting.
So, and that's why I wanted to just understand your feelings as to considering.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, you know, brinksmanship doesn't get anyone anywhere, I don't think, so, so I'm,
And also so the town engineer can have an opportunity to hear some of the testimony and be in communication directly with the project engineer or the applicant's engineer and the developer to understand their perspective, and that might shed some additional light.
is there a possibility that maybe we can do another workshop session or something with staff, something? I guess I'm struggling to find the place where we reach, I want to reach a middle ground, I'm just struggling to understand where that's going to be given the site constraints we have.
I don't know if we need another workshop as much as the engineers getting together.
Okay.
So that we're comfortable
Okay.
with concerns, because the way it came back is, I think, Mr. Evelyn, you stated it quite well. We haven't seen anything that really addressed the potential issue. So if the engineers can get together and possibly, I've seen slight modifications being made that swings the board, you know, feeling I think Alan always says it, the safety of the public. I think we'd feel much better about it.
We certainly don't
By
want an
tabling
accident on
it,
our
it gives us
site.
the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and that's,
I'm certainly agreeable to work with the town to the extent we can to make this right for everybody, absolutely. In full disclosure, I mean, obviously, we have, some contractual deadlines that we have to meet with,
That's what I was
with
asking.
seller. So I don't know what, I would ask to the extent the town can help us and Garth to try to move through, and I'll make myself available to be out here as much as I need to be to try to get this done expeditiously. That would be my only ask, and other than that, we're agreeable to try to come to a conclusion on this.
And do we need to take a vote to table it?
Yeah.
Make a
Yeah,
motion?
you should make a motion
So-
to table the application to next month's meeting.
I would like to make that motion to table this, with the condition of our engineer and their engineer getting together to review the testimony. And if they feel a workshop is warranted, I think the board would more
Well,
than,
certainly we'll
Put it on
have
the
the
next one.
the town engineer communicate with the applicant engineer and applicant representative, and then we can, if it makes sense to have our town engineer attend the workshop meeting for June, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead. For the June meeting, we certainly can make that arrangement. This way you can have the town engineer in the room for that conversation.
Is it possible for us to, I don't know what actions need to take place ahead of time for us to be able to render a decision at the workshop meeting rather than waiting for,
We have to make it a special meeting.
say, if
so
you
Yeah,
guys-
you'd have to make it a special meeting in order to do that, because it's gotta be advertised. Although the public hearing portion has closed, so now it's just the decision.
Since I've
It
been-
just, it's,
is that possible?
you know, it may be possible. I think it's something that we can take a look at from a functional
depends on
standpoint.
if you present a case that something.
If the 2 weeks from the middle of June to the end of June is the deal breaker, certainly the applicant can let us know that. But if it's not, then we would just proceed as usual, have the conversation at the workshop, and then potentially the applicant may need some time to finalize drawings or to come to a final conclusion for this board at its regular June meeting.
So you're welcome to come back to another workshop, no matter what, that's definite. But we don't need to have a special one, I guess is what I was trying to.
I was gonna say, I've been such a great applicant, though, you would have a special meeting just for me, right?
We wanna see you be successful, and that's the only reason we're doing this, so. So having said that, I made a motion to table this to the next.
Second?
Do I have a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any, we have 2 absent and 0 abstains. Thank you very much, and thank you for presenting the materials tonight. Thank you. With that, I don't see any meeting minutes.
We have them,
Yes,
but
we do have them.
I had
We
a,
can-
we can push them off if you want, because I had a number of
You can,
edits to them.
Can we push those off to the?
We can push them off to next month when Michelle will be back to make those changes.
I'd like to move, we adjourn.
I can give you a marked up
Second.
copy
Yeah.
and then we can,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
you're so
Thank
welcome.
you.
I don't want to read them
Meeting's
all out.
adjourned. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Planning Board on ICAT Government Access. We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Planning Board on ICAT Government Access.